Hello there, welcome back to Interval Notation. My name is Gregory Carlson. So we just talked about negative infinity to infinity, and we remember that we always put parentheses around them. Negative infinity to infinity would represent the entire number line, the entire real number line. So let's see, if we wanted to write x is less than 5 in interval notation, that means x is every number smaller than 5, or as I like to think of it, from 5 all the way to negative infinity. Notice that there's a parenthesis around negative infinity. There should always be one, like that. And we put a parenthesis around the 5 too because we don't have an equal sign right here. So on a number line, it would look like this. Here's my happy little number line. Let's put 0 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we're every number smaller than 5 and not equal to 5, so I put a hole around the 5, an empty circle, and then we shade in all the way going to the left, and we even shade the arrow to represent that it's everything going down as far as you want to go. So that's how anything less than 5 is negative infinity up to 5 with parentheses around it because of no equal sign. Notice, by the way, that if you have negative infinity in interval notation, negative infinity should always be on the left, and positive infinity should always be on the right side of these intervals. And that just should make sense because this number will always be smaller than this number. So I should never see a negative infinity here, and I should never see a positive infinity here. How about this next one? We have x is less than or equal to negative 2. So it's the same idea as before, except now we have a bracket. We could be equal to negative 2, so we're negative infinity up to negative 2 with a parenthesis right here. So if you drew a number line, it would look like this. 0, 1, -1, -2. We could be equal to negative 2, so I'll draw a solid dot on it, and we're everything less than that. So if you are really struggling with interval notation, what you might want to do is draw the picture first and then write down what it should be in brackets, because it's easier to see what's going on if you have the number line there. Let's quickly do the rest of them. 6 to infinity if x is bigger than 6, or if x is bigger than or equal to 6. That would be the following. Let's just put 0 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here we're bigger than 6, but not equal to 6. So that would be an empty circle around 6, and then shade to the right and shade the arrow. This one, if we are equal to, that means it would be a solid dot, and then shade the arrow. So notice that if we're not equal to 6, it's a parenthesis. If we're equal to 6, it's a bracket. Either way, though, the infinity sign has a parenthesis. And you get the idea. Let's just quickly do these last two. Here I have x on the right side. On all the previous ones, x was to the left. So be very careful how you read this. X is bigger than or equal to 2. Okay, x is bigger than or equal to 2. So on a number line, if I put 0 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, x is bigger than 2. The little Pac-Man wants to eat the x, the bigger one. So x is bigger than or equal to 2. So we put a solid dot on 2 and shade everything bigger. So that would be bracket 2 to infinity. So notice it's kind of the reverse. You have to be really careful. This is kind of the reverse of what this looks like, but they're equal. X is bigger than 2, so it's 2 to infinity. Here we have x is less than negative 3. So in other words, we're going from negative infinity up to negative 3. On a number line, it would look like this. Let's just put 0 here. -1, -2, -3 is right here. We're not equal to it, so an empty circle, shade to the left. So x is less than negative 3, so we're negative 3 or smaller, or as I like to think of it, from negative infinity up to negative 3, but not including negative 3. So hopefully that makes sense. We will practice this a lot in class until everybody gets it, because it's really frustrating to do a really long problem and find the answer and then lose half a point just because you can't figure out how to put it in interval notation, or you make a mistake when you put it in interval notation. So we'll make sure to practice this until we can get it right. There's one other thing that can happen with this. Occasionally, we're going to get an answer to an equation where the answer is two sets. Let me show you something where this can happen. Check out this graph. Do you see this graph I made right here? It's kind of like a little M. What if I asked you, where is this graph bigger than 0? Where is, if this is 0, the x-axis, where is the graph bigger than 0? Well, it's bigger than 0 on this interval because we're above it, and we're bigger than 0 on this interval because we're above it. So the answer to this equation, the answer to my question is this interval or this interval. And notice I said the word or. That's really important, the word or. It's this or this. If I were to say and, then both would have to be true at the same time, and that wouldn't be the case here. It could be this or this. Either one of them would work, so it's or. So here's an example of how that would look like. If we were saying 2 is less than x is less than 4, or -3 is less than x is less than -1, then you would write that like this, with this little u right here. And this u means union. And union means or, as I just said. So if we were saying, notice for -3 to -1, I have brackets because we have the equal signs here. And 2 to 4, I have parentheses because I don't have equal signs right here. So I have parentheses and brackets for the -3 to -1. So this example does not match this. Let's see what this example would look like if we, I'm just making this up. So if we had, I don't know, say we had this graph. Well, actually, let's not worry about it. The point is, if you're doing two separate intervals, we'll look at examples of this later. I just want to stay focused on the interval notation. If we have two separate intervals and the x value could be inside either one of them, you write the two intervals with an or sign in the middle. And notice that I put the smaller one first. I put -3 to -1 first because that's to the left, and I put 2 to 4 on the right because that would be higher up the number line. Let's look at the next one. X is less than -1/2 or equal, or x is bigger than or equal to 2/3. All right, so let's think about that. This is a very common thing that can happen. So if we're less than or equal to -1/2, just looking at that piece all by itself, less than or equal to -1/2, that would be -1/2 down to -infinity. -infinity has a parenthesis because it always does. -1/2 is going to have a bracket because of the equal sign right here. So you'll notice I have a parenthesis and then a bracket. Now I have my or symbol, my union symbol, which again is just a U, and it doesn't have a tail, it's just a capital U. Let's see, x is bigger than or equal to 2/3, and so you see on this side I have 2/3 going to infinity and the bracket right here. So again, notice you're always going to have if you have infinities, you're always going to have -infinity on the far left, positive infinity on the far right. So if you were thinking about this example on a number line, well, I'll put all three of them on the number line at the very end. The last one is we have less than -6 or bigger than 10. Notice that it's all parentheses here. It's all parentheses because there's no equal signs anywhere. Again, -infinity on the left, positive infinity on the right. So let's see what all three of these would look like on a number line. Let's draw three number lines. So from -3 to -1 would be a solid dot shading to a solid dot, or 2 to 4, open circles for those because we're not equal, and shading in between. So this first one right here, this first interval, we're looking at those intervals on the number line, solid dots here, empty dots for 2 and 4. For this one, if here's 0, we're less than -1/2 or equal to it, so I'm going to put a dot in between 0 and 1, and we're less than that. Or we're bigger than 2/3, so here's 1. I'll put a solid dot about 2/3 of the way, and we're bigger than that. So you see that this is the entire number line with just one little section cut out. So the entire number line, but I have a little gap right here. And the last one being less than -6 but it's an open dot or bigger than 10. That would be an empty dot as well. So there you go. That would be these three on the number line. There's one more thing that can happen, and I know I'm at 10 minutes, but let me just show you this very last example. Let's pretend I had the following. 3 over x plus x minus 1. And I said, what is the domain of this? Are there any restrictions on this? And you should remember from a previous section that x can't be 1, because then this will be undefined. So I want to represent the entire number line except for the number 1. How would I do that? It's really clever. Watch this. I want to do the entire number line. Here's 0, except I want to circle at 1, but I want everything else. X can equal everything except the number 1, with an empty circle right there. So how would I do that? Watch this. This is kind of crazy, but watch. Check that out. What I've done here is I have everything going up to 1 on the negative side, but not including 1. And I have everything bigger than 1, but not including 1. So it's parenthesis, parenthesis. So basically what I just did here is I took the entire number line from negative infinity to infinity, and I just cut a tiny little hole right at 1. So every now and then we might see this. So here is the domain, all of the things you can plug into here. So basically this right here means the same thing as x cannot equal 1. That's what that means. X can't equal 1 means the same thing as parenthesis, negative infinity to 1 parenthesis, or parenthesis, 1 to infinity parenthesis. So I know that seems a little crazy, but that's how you do interval notation. You'll be thankful that we took a minute to just look at this, because this can be an assignment all in of itself. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and have a great day. It's time to start 1.7 as I knock over my light. See you then.